Hey, welcome to Clarksville Vibe the show where we tell the stories about people here in Clarksville, Tennessee who make this community the greatest place to live in America. I'm your host, Kevin Kennedy Jr. Get to be a pediatric dentist here in town. I'm a lifelong Clarksvillian, and now I get the special privilege of bringing you guests from people across different parts of our community who are doing really special things, making our community better every day. Today's guest is someone I'm really excited to bring to you. She is really relentless energy, unending commitment to our community. I would say that she is the definition of a pioneer, and she has really been the spearhead of moving our local soccer community into a lot of youth development, giving kids a lot of opportunities to play at high levels of competition that didn't necessarily exist when I was a kid. She is actually the reason why my wife was brought to Clarksville, so that's obviously something that we're going to talk about too. She is Kelley Guth. She is currently both the boys and the girls head soccer coach at Kirkwood High School. She is also the pioneer behind Clarksville Soccer Club. She was the former Austin Peay women's soccer coach and did that for, I believe, 18 years. And so just an abundant amount of experience. If you see a soccer ball rolling on grass, Kelley is probably somewhere around watching or at least organized that being happening. So I'm really excited to have you, Kelley. Thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, I'm really excited to be here. And what an intro. Wow. I'm blushing over here if you can see me.
Well, it's all true. And you are an inspiration for people who have a lot of time management because you really do everything. Oh. You know, I mean, you've been, I would say, the leader of Clarksville Soccer Club for a really, really long time. And I think you started it. So, boys and girls soccer coach. I asked you before, I don't think anyone else does that, both boys and girls. You're a mom, yes. You've got that full-time job too. And you're also a teacher and, I know you're really, really busy. So thank you for this time.
Oh, I appreciate being here and I'm looking forward to having the conversation.
Absolutely. We'll do a really easy question to start with. When you came here, you grew up in Canada, you came to the U.S. and played college soccer. You came as Austin Peay women's head soccer coach, right? You noticed a gap in where our young kind of soccer players, they didn't necessarily have the development that maybe you thought a community of our size would do. And here we are almost 20 years later, maybe more than 20 years later. You've got Clarksville Soccer Club, which has been a staple of our community. What was it that kind of gave you the motivation to dream about something? And did you ever think that it would become what it is now?
When I came here, the motivation was the Austin Peay job and my first opportunity to coach at the college level. I was very young, 26.
26 years old.
I was kind of still in that mindset of being an athlete still,
sure.
And then what was I going to do with my life? And coaching was something that I'd kind of dabbled with a little bit while I was in college, and even as a high schooler I'd kind of volunteered, and I felt it was a little bit of a niche for me.
Sure.
And so the opportunity to come here, soccer was really there wasn't a whole lot going on with the sport here in Clarksville when I first got here. I mean, Austin Peay didn't even have a soccer field on their campus, when I interviewed for the job. So I felt when I got here and got grounded, in terms of starting that program, one of the things that was really important to me was engaging the community to the program. Yeah. And so that's kind of where I got the motivation to get involved with the youth in the community was let's try to grow the sport, grow the interest in the game with the young ones. And how better can we do that to also get support for the college program and a fan base and all those things. So it kind of started there. And there was some structure in place in terms of a club. I mean, there's a lot of work that's been done over the last 20 years to bring club soccer to where it is now with CSC. But it's really, that was something for me. I just saw there was a need for maybe just some motivation and maybe some guidance and ways to go about bringing kids in to love the game and play the game, and also to engage my college players with the kids in the community and draw a fan base. And so it ended up being a great start, and then there's just been so much growth between now and then. Yeah,
I hadn't even mentioned it, but you're the guru of camps, the Kelley Guth soccer camp in the summers, and your all sports camp. Of course, Adanya played for you, and she got the opportunity as a player to, coach some young kids. And what's so funny is now those young kids are, grown and they have the kids of their own. And we all look at it and just that was a really, really special time. Yeah. When I was growing up here playing Clarksville soccer here in Clarksville. It was the MCSA, and that's still kind of the staple recreational league. Very thankful for it. They really do a great job. I mean, games run on time. The community out there is really good, but there wasn't too many opportunities out there. At that time, I think I played on a travel team called the Royals.
Yes.
That was previously an organization here, but I feel like as time has gone on, Clarksville Soccer Club brought a level of professionalism, brought a level of opportunity to where now parents always have a choice of, if your kid really wants to take soccer seriously, this is a very good option here in town for really all age levels. Were you able to start with all ages, or did you have to start with a smaller group and then expand it from there? How did that work?
Well, and dating back to the Royals. So the Royals was actually the club that was in place when I first got here in 2002. So they were an established club, for travel soccer, and MCSA was here as well. Great organization. My daughter plays in that organization. I've coached for them as well. And so at that time, there was a lot of a change was happening, I guess, in soccer, just the interest. And then with myself coming in, being someone that's a soccer, have a soccer background, and that's, my career. They had another guy here, Daniel Pashadag, who had come in from Germany, was working with the Royals. And so they were kind of established, but there was change happening. And so it ended up I didn't really start a club, so to speak. It was more of a combination of bringing in the Royals together, like leadership together with myself and a lot of other people. I mean, there's a lot, Marshall Duncan, I can name a bunch, Ernie Meyer. There were at one point, there was 3 clubs here in Clarksville. And that happens, when people have their own interests and feel that they can provide a service, and it was something I'm actually most proud of. And I feel why Clarksville Soccer Club is where it is now is we finally got everyone together. We recognize that MCSA is a great entity and rec program is necessary in our community. And there's also a need for that higher level or that family that, wants to see their child develop in a more competitive atmosphere. And we had to bring a lot of people together to form one entity, and that took several years to happen. And it's probably one of the things I'm most proud of, honestly, in my time here is making Clarksville Soccer Club that one entity and then growing from there. And so we had a mixture, getting back to your question of teams. I always believed in start with the little ones, get them to buy in, the families to buy in, the parents, I mean, it's a big commitment, but also being sensitive to the fact that when they're little, there's more to life than just soccer too. So, trying to embrace, let's be committed to the sport, but also understand that, doing other things is okay too, and trying to come up with a program model that supports that. And so we started a development program. We called it the Academy way back when, and this was a program where kids could come, not make a commitment all year, not have to travel everywhere, but get training from qualified coaches under the club umbrella, and just do that on a 6-week basis. And then teams kind of started to develop from there, as they get a little bit older. And so over time now we have both. The Clarksville Soccer Club here, I think we're over 25 teams now, ages 7 years old all the way to under 18 at all different levels of competitiveness.
What's the part of that story that people would be surprised to know the level of time and commitment it takes? Is it the people managing, aligning vision? Is it the structure behind it, kind of putting the money in the right place? Is it accessing facilities? Where is the part of that story that's oh, if you only knew?
Check at all three.
Of them?
It's the stories. I can think back when we were first getting going. We had teams practicing in front lawns, people's backyards. So getting in line with the city and having access to Heritage Park, not just for games, but for training, was a huge effort. Took a lot of people coming together, city leaders, community leaders within our club, with our board of directors at the time, to sit down and kind of come up with an arrangement where we could practice there. That was a game changer, to be able to be at that facility. And then, of course, I would say, from a financial standpoint, it's just putting a structure in place, like you said. So having the right leaders in the right place to make decisions about how to run teams, what kind of programs we're going to have, that was all really, really important. Yeah.
That's interesting. I know just whenever you're starting something new, people's stories of you wouldn't believe this are often kind of crazy. And at the same time, at that point, you are still leading this Division I women's soccer program, right? You're recruiting, you're coaching, you're trying to develop young ladies who have moved here from all over the world. I mean, you've had international players come here and play. When did you really feel like the Clarksville community started to buy into looking at the women's soccer program as something that they wanted to cheer on?
Well, I think when we started that academy program, which wasn't tied into the soccer club, at first I actually started as an Austin P thing. And we had the players work as coaches. Yeah. It was a fundraiser for the program. And we got all these little ones out, ages 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8 coming out and training with the girls. And then, of course, they want to go out and watch them play the game. And I remember games, the environment at our home games during the time that I was there is probably one of the best college soccer environments that I've been around, especially in this area anyways. And our attendance records spoke for that in terms of, how well we were attended. But just hearing kids, we had kids that would have, chants. I remember they'd have chants for our goalkeeper. They'd be on the sideline cheering, and I'm sure Adanya reflects back on that too. And I think that was really, a key part of, just seeing, the success of that little academy program kind of get the support behind Austin P. And then, of course, we were pretty successful when we had 2 girls come in from Columbia that kind of were game changers for the program and brought a lot of attention to us, not only because they were great players, but just they had represented their country at an Olympic level. They were coming off of a World Cup appearance. So we're very, proud to have them as a part of our program, and our team was elevated, obviously, when they were here in terms of our level of competitiveness. And so I think that generated a lot of momentum and support for the program, and that's kind of where it was built. Yeah,
and I know you did, pursued your education, and at some point you decided, hey, I'm going to step away from Austin P's program and focus on the club. And now you've moved back into high school teaching and high school coaching, and that's a different phase of the journey. What have you enjoyed about the high school level of competition and specifically Kirkwood High School? Because these are 2 brand new programs, and honestly, your eligibility of who you have available to you in terms of numbers and classes, that's unique because you're starting a school with just who you start with, right?
Yeah, it was, I miss the competitive part of coaching. When you're working in youth development, we're not as focused on results. We're not as focused on achieving that championship, although some parents are very focused on those things. And that's a challenge, in youth sports is, keeping perspective of development first. Right. And so I kind of missed it a little bit, that, have an opportunity to compete for, a championship. And then the challenge of building something again. I learned a lot on my journey with Austin P. It was I would like to say a roller coaster ride, so to speak. But, to have an opportunity now, having experienced it at the college level, building a program from the beginning. And obviously high school is a different animal, but there's a lot of the same too, and trying to establish a culture and just being the first for a lot of things. It's been a lot of fun. I've really enjoyed, I think what I've enjoyed, aside from having that, a carrot dangled in front of me of trying to compete and bring that program to the levels of Clarksville High and Rossview, our competition, in our direct district in the Northeast. But it's also just like having the chance to work with kids of that high school age, and it's such an important time in their life. And one thing I've really appreciated this year, now that I'm in the building actually teaching, I'm around them more. I get to know them a little bit better, and I get to develop the relationships a little bit better than just being the soccer coach and showing up after school every day. I kind of see them in their element all the time. And I've enjoyed that. It's actually, I think, helped me kind of grasp how to maybe I can affect our culture a little bit better and develop that program. So, so it's been a fun journey so far, but we're very, second year. So
I was was going to say this is your second year.
Yeah, second
Interesting.
season.
You just finished girls.
Finished girls. Boys. Yeah, we had a great turnaround year with the girls. A lot of improvement, and I think our boys are going to be, competitive. We had a good first year, and so that part's really exciting too.
Yes.
Like kind of being unknown, and just trying to instill in them, the lessons I've learned along the way in terms of as a coach and a player, and trying to help them just be the best they can.
You made an interesting point. You said, putting the right goals in front of parents, because you come to Clarksville as a 26-year-old and you're recruiting 16, 17-year-olds and their parents who are probably in their 40s, right? And you're in this odd age of, hey, entrust your daughter to me, and we're going to kind of coach them through it. So you've dealt with parents for 20 plus years, and now you're in this season of, I've done it all. I do know what I'm talking about. This is the goal for my team. My goal is development instead of maybe wins and losses at this point. To the parents, what have you learned about that competitive journey that you feel like is different from 26-year-old Kelley when you first came? Because you made that distinction that it's really about development. And I think that's hard for parents to see sometimes, because Adanya, she wants to win every game she plays, right? Yeah. So we're going to MCSA and it's like, we're keeping score in our hits, but it's not really about that. It's more about the development. So what would you say to that aspect of it, of why is development more of the goal than the wins and losses at every step?
Yeah. Well, I'll start by saying too, I think teaching competitiveness is really important, so understanding winning and losing is important, you know, and so that is something that I believe in, but at the same time, not at the expense of having, a young player who wants to try this game, play this game, who we want to love the game for a long time. I mean, I look at what motivates me is that, a lot of what I've studied too, in terms of, development of youth. At the age of 13, 70% of kids are quitting sports. And there's a reason why, and a lot of it has to do with too much pressure. And it's not fun, if you look at the research that's been done. So what creates the pressure and what creates it not being fun? And so what I try to do as a leader within my coaching group and the people that work with the kids, and also in educating parents, a lot of people say you're like dealing with parents. Well, no, I look at it more like trying to educate parents that, you want your child to love to play. For me, that's a win. Like if they leave practice and the next, they can't wait to come to the next practice. That's the most important thing, right. And that we're focusing on improving their skills, giving them the foundations so that when it does start to be more competitive, when they're, challenging for a state cup or trying out for a high school varsity team or going on to college, that's when we're, a little bit results driven. But right now it's, let's learn the game, let's have fun. And also the biggest thing I think is letting the kids learn to make mistakes and learn from their mistakes and make their own decisions. I use the term like be an autonomous decision maker. When you're on the sideline of any sport, how many times do you hear parents yelling, kick it, shoot it, pass it, and what does that player do in that moment?
Freeze.
They freeze, or they do what their parent, I could tell you story after story. They're going to react to their parent. And what I've tried to do in part of my educating part, when I have to talk to parent groups, a lot of time I'll give examples. I'm like, do you go into your child's math class and stand right in front of them and scream at them when they get the math problem wrong? Like you don't, they work through the problem. They have a teacher there that's helping them figure out how to solve their problem. So translate that onto the soccer field, because the soccer field is my classroom, right? And so when you're on the sideline yelling, shoot it, every time they get the ball and they shoot it when it's not the right time, not the right decision, you're just creating, you're not helping them in their development. So that's a challenge.
Shout out John Booth. He is the ultimate regulator.
John Boone.
John Boone. The regulator of parents.
He's learned a lot in that role.
Yeah, Coach John.
And he does a great job with trying to educate parents.
Well, to be honest, we played a year of the academy, I think is what it was called. Yeah. And it was fantastic. And I really loved the aspect of being able to sit on the sideline, and the only voice you heard was the players and the coach. Yeah. And even the coach was, somewhat reserved in terms of what could have been, right? And the ability to let the kids try to make decisions and then calmly say, okay, well, no, we want to move it to the outside and let's spread out. It wasn't 11 parents
Yeah.
and the coach all screaming at once,
Yeah.
you know, the other way, wrong way, this way. Yeah.
I mean, imagine how the players feeling.
Sure.
They don't know what direction to go, you
Yeah.
know, and I would say that's one of the biggest challenges we have, you know, in terms of youth sports in general, is just like trying to teach that. And then also have the players, you know, like not be afraid to make a mistake, you know, and then that's also coaching, you know, because a lot of coaches are hyper competitive sometimes too. So I feel like we do a good job in our development plan with the Clarksville Soccer Club, that all of our coaches are on board with, you know, like we are teaching, we are trying to, you know, encourage players to make decisions on their own. We're not going to joystick. I like the word joystick coaching,
Sure.
you know, go left, go right, but they have no idea why,
Sure.
right? They got to know why they're doing things so they can do it on their own the next time. So you're not constantly having to tell them the same thing. So those are some of the key things that, you know, we focus on and trying to develop them, and parents.
Yeah. How much this is something that I think I learned as a parent when I saw my kids play for really good coaches, is a really good coach could take this team out into a competitive environment who may be less talented, you know, less athletic than the opposing team, but that coaching, the teaching that's happened when it's really just been focused on learning how to play the game, even though it's been very awkward, kind of outperformed the more athletic team that maybe played less disciplined. Yeah. Have you seen that to be consistent?
It happens a lot. And that's also one of the challenges too, because, you know, when you're trying to, I guess, introduce families to the sport, maybe that are new. I find that's a lot with like soccer here. A lot of the younger teams or players, a lot of their parents have not played soccer, right? It's changing now. I mean, we're, you know, but I'm talking, you know, the last 10 years, and that happens where they don't really understand, you know, they don't really understand the importance of just creating an environment for the kids to, how do I say it? You know, I don't know how to term it, but you know, the players are going to struggle, right? If you put them in an environment that's ultra competitive and you know, ultra competitive and not focused on teaching the right things, right? So if it's focusing on their athleticism right now when they're 7, if I put the best 7 players out there that are all the athletes, and we kick the ball and they have the fastest player up there and they can outrun the other team, that might work right now. And yes, we will win a lot of games. But 2 years from now, that team that does have the coach that is trying to teach them the right technical skills, the right positioning, those teams are going to bypass you in a heartbeat. It might take a little bit, and it's a hard sell sometimes with parents when they see their teams losing, right, to teams that have maybe better athleticism in the moment. But time proves it. I mean, I've seen it, you know, and that's what I say when I talk to parents. I'm like, we're going to teach them the right things. You have to be patient with our process. I mean, I have a great story. We had a girls team that's coached by Dan Hernandez. He's a coach that's been with us. He's a Hopkinsville native, but, you know, he's coached for many, many years. And so he took on this little girls team at U8, and they were just straight out of the academy. And he had that first year, we put them in games and they were getting beat, you know, 18-0. But he was so, you know, he's very particular in how he trains, and he's very technical, and he's teaching them, you know, they're dribbling the ball, they're moving the ball, they're passing, they know their positions. He introduced the number system, you know, numbering of positions, which is like a higher level thinking, you know, with positional play when they were like 8, and he's teaching them these things, and they're just getting beat so bad every game. Year later, those teams that were beating them that bad because they were maybe a little more athletic, they just kicked the ball, they're beating them, you know, 5, 6, 7-0, passing the ball around. You know, 2 years later, you know, those teams can't even compete with him anymore, you know, and the players didn't really change. It's not like it's a brand new, it's the same kids, maybe a couple here and there, but the moral of the story is that you have to have patience to teach the right things, and sometimes it's going to take some time, but I do see it a lot that athleticism beats you, you know, maybe not doing the right things early on, but long term, the ones that are taught the fundamentals, that learn the game, they will bypass them. You know, athletically, they may not be matched up, but if you're smart and you understand the game, you are going to be more successful than that team.
That's really interesting. And just trusting the experts. You know, it's easy, even as me as a parent, it's easy to look in and say, oh, if only they put this girl up here or that girl there. And we just don't have the same lens, you know, and we don't have the same experience, same exposure. And, So I get that as a parent. As kids start to grow, and I think one of the things that's still relatively new from when I was a kid is the middle school program, right? And having opportunities in middle school. Is that the point at which you start to see some girls really kind of show potential for, hey, I'm really going to have a great high school career and maybe have an opportunity? Or is it when is that age in soccer where you're like, wow, this kid can maybe do something really special?
Yeah, I mean, I think, between, when they get to be like 11, 12, you're starting to see those kids that have that special talent potentially, or that potential. There's a lot of growing and change between that 8 and 12-year-old time frame. So once they're getting into the middle school, and they're starting to play at that, that level, and they're moving to 11v11, because that's the other thing too, right? And up until, I guess you would say, it's 6th grade, they're playing smaller sided competitively. So it's like 7v7, 9v9. So that you transition at like U13, which here in Montgomery County, when they're playing middle school soccer, I think they might be still 12. They're a little bit younger, like 6th grade, the middle schoolers, but they're playing 11v11. Okay. They're introduced to it a little early, which is fine, but you start to see them on the big field in the big game. And that kind of opens things up in terms of like what talent sets certain players have. The athleticism piece is important too. Soccer is a great sport where you don't have to be a super dominant athlete, but athleticism does help. Absolutely. But you can also be smart and maybe not as athletic. And so soccer is a great game because there can be balance in different positions, with different, whether it be physical talent or maybe good decision making, maybe not as fast, but very smart, and you can still be an excellent player, so.
Do you often find that parents, of the, let's say the middle school age, they see them stand out, they struggle to understand how even a next level of competition develops into the high school game, because I would say that funnel kind of continues to narrow as time goes on. And like the kids who eventually get to play varsity level high school soccer, it's kind of tough. You've got to have a high level of commitment to be able to reach that level.
Oh yeah. And then also with club too, right? Sure. Because as they get older, the club scene, I mean, high school and club kind of coincide, they play opposite, but, and a lot of your top level players are playing club soccer when they're not playing high school. But I think when they get to the middle school age, you do see that, I wouldn't say parents become hyper focused on like where they're going to be, but, you do see or hear sometimes, my son or daughter is a striker, and coming out of, elementary school or playing 9v9, and, I see them as a left back, and I often tell that story, like, versatility is very important, and that's the one thing we teach with the club with us as we move kids around, because you don't want to be one-dimensional as a player. Because I can tell you even Adanya, so to speak, she played positions when she was with me at Austin P that she didn't play all the time in high school and club, right. So I can't tell you how many times I've had players that we recruited as a striker that end up playing in the back for us. So, being able to just have parents recognize, like, if your kid has the tools and the talents, the coach is going to find the best place for them on the field. And when we get to that 11v11 game, that's where you start to kind of see those tendencies. Certain players have more defensive tendencies or more attacking creativity, so then they find their place, but I feel like versatility is so important, especially at that middle school age, and sport specialty, and like in terms of picking a sport, and also positional specialty is more as we get into that end of middle school, high school age, you kind of start to see that more.
Do you find that parents are often surprised at how tough it is to get a scholarship?
Yeah, I think education's really improved on that in club, the club experience for many. Soccer's a little bit different than most sports. Right. Like some other sports, that high school recruiting is really big, like football. Yes. It's high school, right? Okay. Absolutely. But in soccer, the recruiting process is really like honed in on club soccer. Okay. It's very seldom as a high school coach there's interaction from a recruiting standpoint with college coaches. It's a lot on the club level. So, just having parents kind of understand the level of competition of number of players that actually get scholarships that go on to play. I think the percentage is very small. I think it's like 2 or 3% of high school athletes go on to play college. So it's very special, So competition for scholarships is tough. I think maybe now with the growth of education for parents in terms of how the NCAA works, and how they divvy out scholarships in terms of, let's say, NCAA allows, and I'm not sure what it is now because I've been out of the game for a while, and the rules keep changing, and the college landscape, that could be a whole nother podcast.
That's right.
Kevin, we could talk about. But back when I was involved, I think it was 14 full ride scholarships was a fully funded
for
program.
A roster of 28.
Right. For how many players do we
whatever.
carry? 28 players. So do the math, right?
Yeah.
If you're giving everyone a scholarship, no one's really getting a full ride, or if some are, then there's quite a few that are getting nothing, much, right? Yeah. So, and that's the reality on both the men's and women's side, that scholarship dollars are, competitive,
yes.
For sure.
Well, it's interesting to me with my 9-year-old and 7-year-old that are at home now and kind of growing up in the sports community with parents these are kind of like first generation parents. They've not had the experience of raising older kids, or maybe they didn't play in college like Adanya did. It's funny when I tell them, I was like, you guys realize that Austin Peay's roster, if there's like one kid from Tennessee, the whole state,
I know,
it is multi-state, internationally recruited. And that's at what you perceive to be like a lower level D1. This is still a really, really highly, sought after scholarship pool. And I think it's hard for parents to understand, if my kid's scoring 6 goals a game at, this smaller school, they'll be able to play at Austin Peay, right? Yeah. Well, maybe not. You look at that roster and it's Arizona, Texas, Florida. It's all over the place.
Yeah. And I think, it was when I was at Austin Peay, and of course we were not fully funded, but we had ways academically.
Yes.
There's ways to reward players and things like that too. But, it was hard. It was hard to recruit locally unless that player was absolutely dominant too, because
Melissa Aquino.
You have players.
Melissa Aquino absolutely dominated.
I had Ashley Beck. I had Ashley Beck.
Okay. Absolutely dominated.
Yes. And Ashley, came in and did really well for us. But you also, as a coach, you want to make sure that when you bring in a local player, that they are going to be able to have a good experience too, right? Because you want the community behind your program,
right? That's tough.
So it's hard, and you are recruiting all over and not just locally, you know. So it is very competitive.
Yeah,
but
you don't want to recruit somebody and they got all their cousins coming to watch them sit on the bench.
Exactly, right. But I like to say, and I had a conversation with one of my players the other day at the high school. I said, like, if you want to play college soccer, there is a place for you somewhere. Now you have to determine what you're looking for, and then we have to get the right fit. But if someone wants to play, there is a place, you know. Now, if I said to you, as a senior that, maybe didn't play a whole lot on my high school team, I want to go play at UT Knoxville, probably not going to happen, right? But there's a place for everybody. And so that's what I do, still try to guide players and give advice. And I think that's a big part for parents, is just getting educated about the process.
Tell us a little bit about the difference between boys and girls. Because, I look around the state of Tennessee, and let's say Austin Peay, for example, has a women's soccer program, but doesn't have a boys soccer program. And you look at MTSU, maybe I don't really know which programs it is. I think last time I heard, maybe Western Kentucky has got the closest boys soccer program.
They used to. Not anymore.
And so tell us about that. Like, what's some of the reasoning behind that?
I think that, I know that in this area, Belmont and Lipscomb are the two closest that have men's programs. I think a lot of it's a funding model with the NCAA. And you hate to say it's the blame Title IX, blame it or say what you want.
Sure.
But I would say that a lot of the women's teams were added, to help with, equity, right? And so you can't add another men's sport if you're trying to add a women's sport to get equitable, right? So I think that's part of it, is that
football
Austin
just
Peay
takes up so many
correct,
numbers,
and so you're trying to balance, and so you have, like at Austin Peay, they added soccer, right? So I think that's part of it, and then it's the athletic programs. It's expensive to have teams, so there's a lot of men's programs in and around this area, but more D2 NAIA level, in terms of soccer, but also our conference didn't support men's soccer at the Ohio Valley. I think they do now, actually, but back when we were in the OVC, there wasn't men's soccer part of that conference. So the few schools like EIU that had men's played in another conference too. So that's part of it too, I think.
Talk about our community a little bit. I know we've got some exciting things on the horizon, right? Like we've got plans for a new soccer complex, I believe.
Super excited about that.
Super excited. I've kind of seen it, and there's a pessimist part of me that's just like, oh, are we really going to see it? You know, but I'm pretty sure it's happening. Like, what should we expect?
I
know
would
you're
hope
not at the mayor, but
no,
you know.
I would hope that it's going to happen.
Yeah.
I see the road every day. I drive
Sure.
by it. I see restaurants going up nearby, so I envision the future of that being a very busy intersection. I know that the family that had that land, that owned that land, that made that deal with the city, wants it to be a park, and so I'm really hopeful. We need it. I mean, not just for soccer. I mean, there's other sports, lacrosse, flag football, that all need more space.
Yes.
I mean, we need to see kids out playing and experiencing these things, families having a place to go, and there's not much on this side of town, like on the Exit 8 side. So I'm hopeful. I haven't heard any updates, but I'm really hopeful it's going to happen soon, because I think it's going to be well used, and it is much needed, but I don't really know where it stands right now. I'd love to see turf fields so that we could play when we have as much rain as we have, and an indoor complex. I see all these other, communities like Clarksville, very similar, that are growing their sport facilities, and I feel like we have the potential here in this community and the support to make that happen. So I'm hopeful it's going to keep growing.
I do think that's interesting, because I think in some sports, we did an episode with a golf pro here, and we've had state championships in golf, and kids go on and do really well in college golf, and we've seen less success in sports, statewide, like football and basketball, because a lot of the facilities and the development's not been there. Soccer's had some really good state championship teams. Clarksville High has made some great runs. The Clarksville Soccer Club, I feel like, has won big championships as they go around the country. And I feel like the athletes are here and the organization's here. And if we really had more opportunities, I wish, my 7-year-old had the chance to play 2 games on a Saturday,
for sure.
But you just can't do it when you're stuffing 25,000 people onto Heritage Park for MCSA. Like, she gets her 1 game and that's it. But she would love to play a second game, and it would benefit her so much for us to have 1 more game on that day and just have a little bit more exposure. Like, think of what you could achieve with just double the time. And it's not traveling to Gatlinburg and traveling to Atlanta. It's just right here. And it's like, instead of just playing 1 game, like, you get to play 2. Maybe that second game's optional, but right now we don't even have the chance.
Or a place to practice too.
I
know MCSA, I mean, we are fortunate enough that we have worked that out, to be able to train at the Heritage Park. But, there's, I still see MCSA teams everywhere, I mean, they have, I don't even know how many thousands of kids that play. And so it would be great to have more space for teams to be able to practice more, and to maybe play more games, I mean, it's so needed, and, the growth is there. And so hopefully the support continues to be there.
I think it will. And hopefully people like you are committed to it. I think your reputation precedes yourself, and when you speak, it means something. You did tell me that there's an interesting story on, how the CSC had a relationship with LifePoint on your practice facility. So tell me a little bit about that.
So and I love this story. So when I've lived on Rossview Road for 15 years, and I'd never turned right at Exit 8 to go when coming back from Nashville. I'd always turn left. I never even knew what was over there.
That's right.
I mean, and I'm talking, this was now quite a few years ago. So like Farmington and all those subdivisions were not there.
Right.
It's farmland, right? So, but one day, I would never forget, I was driving home from soccer, and this was at a time where we had nowhere to practice. So this was back with the club teams. We had teams practicing in people's backyards. We had teams in front yards of schools. I mean, in just terrible areas, club teams practicing. And it was just a struggle. And we were always trying to come up with, what can we do, to find a place to play. And I turned that day, for some reason, I turned right. I'm going to go see what's over here. And I never forget, I turned that corner, right where, I guess, Rollo Road.
Yes.
And it really was like a divine moment for me. It felt like the sky, everything opened up. I just looked and saw that huge grass field right in front of LifePoint. And this was before it was remodeled. They had grown and built it, but it was just a small building and this huge grass lawn. And I just saw kids playing there. I just envisioned it in that moment. And I drove in and I went into the parking lot, and there wasn't anybody really there. It was late, probably on a Saturday or Sunday. And I knocked on the door, and Pastor Mike was there, and he answered the door.
That's interesting.
And I just said, I introduced who I was, and I just said, who owns this land right here. And he's like, well, the church does. And so I kind of said what I was and who I was and our needs. And so and now it's a little blurry, the rest of that story, but we basically got together again and with his leaders as well and our leaders. And we had a handshake agreement that they were going to let us utilize that field for soccer, for the club. And we made an agreement we would help them with like maintaining the area, mowing the ditch, taking care of whatever. And that was our deal. And then from that moment on, I mean, he tells the story every now and then at service about that when I came in, because at that time he was very new here and the church was struggling and he had come here to help grow that church and be, he's a planter, right? And he was there to help grow it and change it. And so when he said from that moment on, when we made that agreement, there was no contract, there was no negotiations, it was just a handshake agreement to take care of each other kind of thing. And their membership started to grow, Life Point started to turn around, our club got to see growth, and then now that's gone since then. We've developed behind the church, we moved off of that front lawn and we developed an actual practice field, and we have a great relationship with the church, and many of our families are members of the church. And it's just been a really cool experience and story, and I'm so thankful for him and his willingness to even just talk to me that day. I mean, because it's just such a
knocked on the door,
just random thing, and then look where we are now. It's just amazing.
What's interesting is we're on our 70th something episode, and we really only do episodes with people who are movers and shakers, and they accomplish cool things and they take chances. And there's been several times where I've kind of gone back to their story and like dug into it enough. And it has been a moment of like, I'm just driving by something and I have no idea if it's going to work, but I just go and knock. And it just like, that is the courage, that step of courage to just, I don't know how this is going to turn out, but I'm going to go try. I'm going to knock on this door and we're going to see what happens. And then something amazing comes out of it. You know?
I mean, I'm so thankful. I don't know what we would have done without that space. And our club we utilize it a lot
all the time.
And they're growing. I mean, Life Point's growing their programs, their youth program is huge now, and they we've worked it out, obviously we're out there every chance we can be. And I think they love that, too, because they love seeing kids out there playing, and so it's a great story.
That's awesome.
And so something that I'm very thankful that, that happens.
Well, last story we got to tell is you're the reason Adanya, my wife, came to Clarksville. She tells the story that she's playing in a tournament in Memphis. She's from Bearden High School in Knoxville. And, Kelley Guth comes up to her and, eventually you ask her to come on a visit. And she tells the story of, she gets off at Wilma Rudolph exit 4. And as they're driving down Wilma Rudolph towards Austin P, they pass an Olive Garden. And that was like the thing where she knew that this would work.
This was her place.
Yeah, but she was the first recruited class. Yes. You had the first class of the Melikinos and Rebecca Crawfords and them. And then she came in that next class, the first recruited class with Erica Dingler and, some of the others at that time. So I'm going to brag on her, right?
Sure.
She was a special
Not hard
athlete.
to brag on her.
She was a special athlete. She was really a leader. The Joy Award is this award that goes to kind of like the all around best men's athlete, best women's athlete. She was the winner of that. I think as a senior. But what I really love about her watching my girls develop is, yes, she was an incredible athlete, but she worked so hard. She was really a hard worker. She was really competitive. So for those who know Adanya now as just mom and coach, like what did they miss about seeing her as an athlete?
She was relentless in her work ethic. There wasn't, she's one of those that you wish you had 26 of her on your team, and what she didn't have, and she's very talented, but what she lacked in some areas, she made up for, tenfold in her leadership and just her teammanship, she was just always a team first type person, so always as a young player, and we were very young, she came in, like you said, first recruited class where I don't have leadership, I don't have a culture, and I'm asking 18-year-olds to be captains.
And you're 27.
And I could be their friend still. I'm young enough, so it's hard. But to just expect that of a high schooler to come in and not only just be a part of a team, but also lead a team. And she just, had those abilities and earned the trust and respect of her teammates. So I think she was very easy to talk to and approachable, but very competitive too. And she every day it was the same. I mean, you never had a day off, you know, but that's what I admired about her the most. You know, I mean, I could brag on her forever. And I love watching her. Like even last Saturday, I was at the basketball and I'm watching her out there coaching as I'm waiting for my daughter's game to play. And like, I know that voice, you know, but always encouraging, always positive, even though she has that hint of like, you got to go get it, you know, competitive. She does. And, but I think that's what, you know, I'm so happy to see her coaching because that's the kind of female role models that we need too, that instill competitiveness and that importance of work ethic, but also are sensitive and caring. And she's a great bread maker. I remember that was her.
So that's
she's
funny.
The baker.
Yeah.
Of the
so
team.
it's like people know her as like Cupcake Adanya, like Bible study Adanya. And I'm like, no, there's a different Adanya.
There's a different side.
When that whistle blows, like you have no idea.
The switch is on, you know, and it definitely is that way with her. And even just to brag on her a little more too, she also was one, and I think the only one, if I don't think I'm not misspeaking here, to win the post NCAA postgraduate scholarship, which is a
master's degree.
Which is a huge award, and I was so proud to be able to nominate her for something like that. Like, and not only because of the athletic accomplishments, but also her academics. You know, she was incredibly smart, dedicated to her studies, and to receive that award at an NCAA level from a small mid-major college, Austin P, that our team wasn't a national contender. We weren't, you know, all-American status athletically. It was such a great award for her to earn, and she earned it. She deserved it. And but she's one of the ones that I'm so happy is in this community. So I'm glad she met you. I told the story. I don't know if we have time for this, but I told the story about one of my first interactions with you was when you all had that little car wreck in front of the Ellington Hall.
That's right.
And you just started dating, and I rolled up because she called me because something happened, and then your dad rolled up. And I met your dad.
I was rolling through there, and I stopped to park. She went into Ellington to go get a form. And somebody backed up into me.
And
so I'm 21 at the time, and of course I call my dad. She calls you.
And that was my first meeting of Mr. Kevin. So that was awesome
Senior,
too. Kevin Senior. So, I'm so. I mean, she's just one that I was so proud to have and proud to say now as an alumni, and that's here in our community and coaching. I'm still going to try to get her back coaching soccer, you know, and
she won't turn it down. You know, I don't get to coach because she's always the coach, but she has got such the giftedness and the talent, and you know, she's got players. I know it sounds crazy that she's coaching fourth grade, but she's got players that she coached 3 years ago who will come up to her in the grocery store, and she's most of the time remembers them and sometimes doesn't, but they remember her because she does just have that unique ability of like making it fun, caring about the kids, big personality, but then she's after it. You know, I tell the story, and I don't. This is complete exaggeration, and everyone I tell them it's the truth, but it's not really true. I was like, you know, she led the OVC in yellow cards for like 4 years in a row, and they're like, no way. I'm like, oh yeah, she's a fireball, straight bulldog. You know,
she played like that though.
Oh, she
pretty
did.
Clean.
Yeah, she played clean to the rules, and it's funny to watch her teach our girls now. So you know, it's like, listen, you do this, but you do it this way. You know, this is the way you do it, to respect the game and respect your coaches. And but I'm blessed that she somehow decided to marry me. I have no idea why. But thank you for bringing her to Clarksville. That's how I got to meet her.
I'm glad she's getting to stay and impact our community too, because I think she's great for all the young kids she gets to work with. You know?
Well, Kelley, thanks so much for this time. This has been super fun. I just, as a lifelong Clarksvillian, somebody who played in MCSA and has kids who play in MCSA now, and I know they have the opportunity if they really say to me, Dad, I really enjoy soccer. I want to do something special with it. Your work is what is going to give them an opportunity. So I love the community, and it wouldn't be the same without you. And so I'm glad you came here to coach. And I know Kirkwood is blessed to have you. You know, those parents have no idea what kind of expertise that they have that's modeling for their girls and boys who get to be a part of your program now. So thank you so much for what you do.
Well, thank you for doing this. And I think it's great to share the love of our city and why it is the best place to live in America, right? 100%. But I appreciate you asking me to be here. It was very special for me to get that invitation. So thank you.
Well, hey, if you made it to the end of this episode, thank you so much. I know you've enjoyed hearing from Kelley and the great stories that she shares and her passion for both soccer, but also our community. Go back and listen to some of these other episodes and people that we're talking to, experts in their field and in their sport, to hear about what local sports looks like in our community. We'll catch you on the next one. See you then.